So we've reached episode 20, and today I'm joined by Bob Davison, aka Deca Bob. Bob, I'm absolutely delighted to have you on the podcast. Your name has been mentioned on a couple of occasions in the previous podcasts. I spoke to a lad from Oma. You probably never heard of him, Shane McGill. He dropped your name, and another guy who's very close to you, and he's a family relation, Keith Clark. So these two men have mentioned you in relation to being an inspiration and a driving force behind maybe some of their triathlon achievements and their endurance feats and their ultra adventures.
Yeah.
So what is the crack with Deca Bob?
I'm not doing too bad. Like I say, previous I've been out of the triathlon now probably since I turned 40, which is 7 years ago. So you might as well say I'm probably enjoying the retirement from it. But sometimes I do sort of think I maybe need to get back at it again. But this last few years I've been building out a house and different things, so it's been keeping me busy. So maybe when it all finished, and I'll maybe put the toe back into the water again, get back to the triathlons.
When was the last triathlon that you done then? Just out of curiosity.
2017, I think it was Ironman Barcelona.
So you bowed out
on a high, and I think I finished off with a PB that year too. So
brilliant!
You don't get much better than that, like so.
Happy
enough to finish off with that, you know. So
people that won't know you will maybe be wondering why you have the nickname of Deca Bob. So for anybody that doesn't understand that, give us a as I was going to say a brief sort of reason as to why you're called Deca Bob, but this could go on a while. But I want to hear this just from you, in your own words, kind of. Who's Deca Bob? How did you get this nickname?
Well, I suppose that'll been actually 12 years ago there this week. Myself and Keith and Andy done the Decaman, which at the time consisted of 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile on the bike, and finish off with a marathon each day for 10 days. So I suppose that's where Deca come from. Then over them few weeks and months after that, people started to get to know what the Deca actually was. Then people started saying there's Deca Bob, you know. So it sort of stuck with me, and around the triathlon circles, and people still would call me Deca Bob, you know. But as for friends and family are not really into that sort of thing, they don't. It's just Bob, like so.
It's just plain old Bob, but for us that are in the know, it'll always be Deca Bob, I think.
Aye, pretty much, yeah. It's sort of.
I think Shane McGill thinks that your first name's actually.
Aye, anytime you run into him at something, or you see him out and about or whatever, you see him on Facebook or whatever, it's Deca, like, you know. So.
Hey, it's pretty cool. It's a well-earned nickname, I would say. Tell us a wee bit about your memories of the Deca.
Probably the sleep deprivation was probably a big thing from the Deca. You know, I remember finishing it, and I'd say 2.5 years later, I was still waking up in the middle of the night thinking I was still at the event. I remember saying to the wife, you know, I haven't done the swim today, and she'd be looking at me saying, what do you mean? I said, I'm still thinking that I was at the race, you know. And this went on, like I say, about 2.5 years that I kept waking up with thinking I was still at the event, you know. So, yeah, you know, but eventually, like I say, that's a distant memory now, all the same. But
it sounds like it took its toll on you then. I mean, mentally.
Mentally it probably did, but physically, within the following year, I was back doing just ordinary, well, not just ordinary single Ironman. An Ironman's still a hard event, you know, but I sort of got back into it again doing single stuff and trying to better my times, you know, whereas I didn't have any injuries from it, you know, but like I say, it was maybe more a mental side of thing. And plus, maybe another thing I found from the Deca as well was the cold water. It still to this day, getting in and out of swimming pools and different things, I think the water's a lot colder than it actually is, because during that event the water did get colder and colder each day, and it was getting harder for us guys to get into the water. And I just found probably from that event, I still think getting into the swimming pool is actually colder than it is, but like I say, it's all is just a natural thing.
Aye, that's interesting. I suppose it is a trauma of sorts. Do you know what I mean? Putting yourself
But
through such a brutal regime for 10 days, and maybe your survival mechanisms are just on high alert anytime you go near water, saying, "Hold on a minute, is this going to be 10 days of mentalness?"
yeah,
Like,
we're on holidays there a few weeks ago in Lanzarote, like, and even jumping into the swimming pool with my daughter, like, it was just like took me 2 or 3 goes every time to sort of do it. I sort of walking up the edge of the pool, no, it's going to be freezing. Then having to eventually jump in and just getting sort of like flashbacks to the race when it was really cold, you know. But sure, I suppose it's all part of the game, as I say, you know.
it's an interesting impact. What about the other aspects then? Obviously, the swim 2.5 mile or the guts of that every day for 10 days is bad enough. But then you have 112 miles on a bike to do after that cold swim every day for 10 days. How did that impact on you?
Well, let's say each day getting out of the swim, myself, Keith and our guys have all had our own wee sort of camps within Eskerloch, and you'd been sitting. I remember getting out of the water, and the wife and friend Anthony, they sat with hair dryers, get the wetsuit off. They were in hair dryers trying to warm me up as quick as they could, monkey hat and stuff on, cycling full near enough winter cycling gear, you know, to get you ready for the bike. And every day for them first 2-3 hours, like, you just felt so cold to the core, you know, that you just kept tugging away, hoping that the outside temperature would heat up, you know. But sort of towards maybe the end of the bike, each day you'd start taking off some of the layers and stuff. You were starting to warm up a bit, you know. But
What time of the year?
it was July time, so
Aye.
ideally the weather should have been fine, but maybe just here in Ireland, like, we don't always get the great weather, you know. And
Well, that's
definitely
it.
that year it wasn't great, you know. We had some days you had, 4 seasons in one day, you know. At one end of the course it was nice and sunny, and you cycle to the other end of the course, you were getting beat down with rain and hail and wind, you know. So
Yeah.
it definitely was a tough time of the year, you know, to be honest. Weather.
We've been swimming recently in Loch Macquarie, and again, it's the middle of July now, and you would expect the water to be a lot warmer than it currently is, and that's just maybe a reflection of the crap weather that we've been having. The sun hasn't been out too many days, and the air
Oh,
temperature hasn't been consistently high enough to lift that water temperature.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's probably something similar then back then.
I definitely know it didn't. It wasn't. I remember the first few days, probably water temperature was about 17 and a half. And I think in the final few days, it dropped down to about 13 degrees. And oh, yes, that's only 4 degrees. But when you're losing a lot of body fat and stuff, because I remember I started with 10% body fat myself. And we used to get measured each morning before we started and stuff, body fats and weight and things like that, you know, with a medical team. And on the final day, my body percent fat was, I think it was just in around 2.5%, you know. So I had, even though you're eating and constantly eating, and, you know, maybe eating about 14,000 calories a day, you know, I was still losing quite a lot of body fat, you know, which made that water feel a lot more colder.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'd lost your natural insulation.
Pretty much, aye. So it looked good, maybe for the wife. I looked good, but body wise, maybe the first time I've maybe ever had a 6 pack, maybe. But you know,
Jeez, it's probably one that you wouldn't recommend for people that are looking to get a 6 pack.
no, definitely not, definitely not. No, it's pretty harsh now. But
I'm still working on trying to find if I have a 6 pack. The last 6 pack I had, I think, was probably half a dozen cans of harp from
uh,
off license. Thankfully, that's the right few years ago now. But I so have being at 10% body fat even to begin with was pretty lean. So you obviously were in some nick at the beginning of that. So you had been, I assume, very, very active in fitness and stuff, even in the run up to the DECA.
Well, running up to Dakar, me and myself and Keith had done a triple iron earlier on, probably less than a year before that, so we were always doing what we would have been doing in training, people would have maybe been doing as an event, if you know what I mean. So I remember leading up to Dakar most weekends, we would have went to the swimming pool in Cookstown and would have swam for the last couple of 3 hours, the closing time. We got changed, headed back home and onto the bike and cycled all through the night till first light or whatever.
Right.
And on with the running shoes and run for 2 or 3 hours, to lunchtime, whatever it sort of worked out that day, and that would have been, Keith done that a few times with me, whereas myself, I was maybe regularly doing that, every weeks, so things like that, you're covering maybe through the night, you're maybe covering 150 miles.
So a 3 hour swim in a pool, I personally can't think of anything more repulsive to be
That's
but
it.
it's just the sort of going up and down the same pool. I would just find that really difficult. There's obviously something that's very different in your outlook and your perspective and maybe your mental strength that enables you to be able to take on something like, I'm going to just split this one down into those, what you've just talked about there. So if we just even talk about the swim, what's your mindset going into a pool thinking, I'm here now for 3 hours?
Going into sort of thinking, I would do a few laps and then got to the point then we do 3 laps and stop and refuel and just kept doing that, and you sort of, it helped mentally, it builds you up good and strong, because when you come to some of these big ultras, it's all small laps, so you're ready for it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and whenever you were doing those all-nighters, was that in preparation for the DECA, or you had said you'd been kind of doing that anyway? Were you kind of just doing that anyway so that you would be ready to rock at any given point? If something landed, you'd be ready to go?
Pretty much. From doing single Ironman races, I'd went on and done a double, then really once I got it under my belt, I sort of kept at long distance stuff, whereas I was always going out on maybe my day off work or something on a Saturday and doing 10-hour bike rides and things like that there, and just always sort of kept long distance on me. That it didn't let go way down low, then have to sort of start over again, if you know what I mean. So I kept at a high level if an event came up that you didn't have much training really to do for it, you were sort of top of your game, if you know what I mean.
And then in terms of your nutrition and things like that, would you have been kind of prepping all week? Or would you have been eating big calories during the week in preparation for what was coming at the weekend?
Not really. I found probably in the early years with doing just Ironman races, you would have been loading up on carb loading and things like that there, because you thought that's what you had to do, and you've read somewhere in some of the magazines that's what they were doing or whatever. Whereas I found over the years, I just eat as normal. I found when you're preloading and stuff, or you were feeling bloated and stuff, and you're feeling slow. Whereas I got to learn them personally for myself. I just eat as normal as I did if I wasn't training on a certain day or whatever. Or I just ate how I felt, if you know what I mean. So I wasn't overeating or carb loading or anything, that sort of way, and just had it as I went, if you know what I mean.
Would you have been a man for the gels and the powders and all those types of things?
I would have took the gels and stuff, and if something new came out in the market, I always got onto it and tried it out. And if there's a certain race I was going to and only having a certain type of gel or brand, I would get onto it the weeks and months leading up to it, so it's getting used to it, that you weren't finding out in race day, flip, that gel doesn't work for me, and next thing you're at the side of the road been sick or whatever,
What was it then that caught your attention, or how did you hear about the DECA? So you had done the double, you had done a triple, You've been training weekly, doing monster triathlons pretty much every week through the night.
Mm-hmm.
Something somewhere along the line or had mentioned the word DECA. Who or what, when or why, or what happened that you thought I'm going to have a go at this?
I remember reading, well, you probably don't get it as much now, the 220 Triathlon magazine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There's an article one year on about an athlete called Bob Brown, an English fella, who had done the Decaman, and I just thought this was absolutely unreal, like this insane distances this fella had done, you know. So I suppose that sort of planted the seed in the back of my mind, really, from the start, and I always thought someday it'd be nice to get to the level that you could even go get onto the start line of something like that, never mind competing in it, like. So
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I was back then. So if you googled it, Bob Brown, he's done a lot of ultra stuff over the years. He's maybe done a few decas, and he's run across Australia and things like that, you know. So it could be maybe a Bob thing. It's hard to know.
If you're called Bob and you're listening to this and you have a notion about doing an Ironman or a triathlon, get after it.
But that's as I was way back. I done my first Ironman maybe 2005. So it was probably in around then. That's when I first heard of this guy Bob Brown, and that planted the seed in my mind, really, and eventually ended we got around to doing it.
So whenever you decided that you were going to do the DECA, then there was a number of you that had signed up. There was only a few then that actually turned up on the day, isn't that right?
Originally, if I remember right, there was 7 people from across UK, and maybe one fellow maybe from further afield, but it all signed up to take part. And I suppose over the time frame of the year of getting ready and stuff, guys probably got injured and maybe things they got there, and then maybe realised it was too big of an event for them, or whatever. But it was dwindled down to 3 of us, and the 3 of us were Keith, he's my cousin, and Andrew, he was also in the triathlon club that we were in, so that's how it dwindled down to us 3. But I always said during all 3 of us all had our bad times and highs and lows, but we always did. So well, I personally always thought if that event was somewhere else in the UK or in the world, and we didn't know each other, but probably when we had our bad days, you probably would have pulled out because you didn't have to show face, if you know what I mean. So because we all knew each other, it sort of keeps away, keep going, and Andy keep going. So may as well, I can't let the side down and stick at it myself, you know, and keep the toe on it, you know. So
it was that sort of familiarity and camaraderie that kind of kept you going and pulled you through those dark
it
times.
was, yeah, because definitely every morning after the swim, you'd have been looking out through the window of your camper van, whatever, and saying, "Flip, Andy's already on the bike and away," and Keith, flip, he's changed and on the bike. Flip, I need to get a move on here, you know. And you were constantly watching each other to see how far ahead each other was, and you always giving each other a bit of help when our person was getting a bit low, you know.
So the 3 of you actually. So did you actually race the Decaman then?
Oh, we're always keeping an eye on each other's laps and what mileage each other done to see that you weren't falling too far behind, you know, that sort of way, like. But
because that's actually a question that I never asked Keith, because I kind of, and that's probably more to do with my mindset, because I'm more of a complete rather than compete type of a person. So you were actually racing the event, so you were thinking, well, I can't let him get ahead of me, or
yeah, and even still, there was a lot of people doing their own sort of Ironman distance things and different distances during the event. It was a rule that we had from the start: if somebody was coming to cycle with you or whatever, you weren't, you know, they had a sit beside you or behind you. You weren't allowed to draft off them, you know. So that was pretty much the biggest rule, or main rule we had.
Yeah.
To get the advantage of other people that you knew who were coming along to help out or take.
Mm-hmm.
But you were definitely watching, you know, the laps, you know, to see how far I was ahead of each other or behind, you know.
And how did the whole event kind of pan out? You know, so day one's obviously, well, I'm saying the word obviously. It's not obvious to me at all. It's absolutely bonkers as far as I can make out. But I presume that on day one, the excitement levels are up, your adrenaline's up, you're kind of pumped, you're in real good nick, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So did
Oh,
that?
yeah. It was. You're definitely pumped and stuff. At the same time, you're riding along and running and different things like that during the day. You're thinking, I need to hold back because it was only day one and
Yeah.
a lot could happen, and I found it maybe a bit hard at the start to sort of hold back and stuff. But even saying that, there, like we're still first day. I think we're in around three of us ran around that 14, 15 hour mark, So we weren't just going super fast, But I know for myself, it probably day three was probably the start of my first sort of bad days, if you know what I mean. I took a Achilles tendon sort of problem. Hadn't
Right.
torn it, but it was in bad shape, and my foot was badly swollen up and things. So I think again it was probably from the cold weather that I was wearing a few pairs of overshoes to try to keep my feet warm, and I was then cycling in a poor position, if you know what I mean. I was having my toes pointed down, which didn't help the Achilles. So day 3, 4, and 5 were probably my worst days. Possibly 6. Then I started to come around it and got better and started to get faster again. So as the days went on, I got sort of in around 14, 15 hours. Then I slowed down to I think maybe 17 or something. But then I think after day 6, I started to get faster each day. I was getting quicker and quicker, So I think from the first day and day 10, day 1, there was only maybe 30 minutes of time difference.
Right.
So yeah.
So there was a bit of a dip then initially, but then the body, I suppose, maybe got used to it
Got
in
used to
some
that.
respects.
Yeah. Whereas I think like Keith, maybe midway, he was maybe 6, 7, 8 was maybe his worst days, and Andy maybe the last few days was his maybe harder days, So all had hard days, We had to cope with,
It's interesting how they came in sort of 2 or 3 day waves and how they were kind of spread out. It's
Mm-hmm.
just interesting. I suppose it shows the individual differences
Yeah, yeah.
in each of the athletes at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What did you take from completing that DECA? Talk me through what's going through your mind as you're approaching that finish line on having done 26 miles on day 10.
Probably on the last day, well, we got to the start line and knew we just had that one day to finish off. So the last few hours coming around, you're sort of thinking in your mind, what way am I actually going to feel? Am I going to start crying and different things? And I remember coming up to the finish line then on the last lap, coming up, thinking I'll be in absolute tears, But once I got there, there was nothing. I think I just had give it all. With the 10 days, I had nothing else left in me to give, if you know what I mean. I was empty, I thought it would have been the tears would have been tripping me and stuff, but still, like, it was great to get finished, with your family and friends around you, and the wife coming running down the finish line with me and different things like that, it's
It's
always
it's an absolutely phenomenal achievement. It blows my mind. That you can do anybody that can do an Ironman, hats off. Anybody that can do 10 Ironmans, whatever the plural is,
yeah.
hats off. But to do 10 in 10 days is just absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that takes endurance to a whole new level, and you know kudos where kudos is due. That's something to be well proud of, Bob. 100%.
It's good to have it done, but at the same time, without the help of family and stuff, it would have been a lot harder. You always had people in the background cooking food for you and prepping your clothes for the next morning and getting your wetsuit dried out. And I'd say my wife probably never wants to see a wetsuit again. From it. Because
She's probably developed an allergy to neoprene.
she would have been stuck taking it, getting it pulled off, and then getting it dried out, so you were getting into a warm, dry wetsuit the next day. And food prep and getting your shoes ready and this ready and drinks ready. It was a big undertaking for them as well. 'Cause I know, and I remember as well, even during some of the later days on it, like you were getting finished and trying to get to sleep, and I remember being scared to go to sleep in case I didn't waken up, and you
Aye.
you were setting a whole load of alarms on your watch and getting the wife to set her alarms and extra alarms just to make sure that you waken, because I remember the first night I stayed in the camper home, and I remember the wind was keeping me awake, so I got frightened, maybe a couple of hours sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So the next night I decided I would travel back home again. So the time it was finished, travelled back home, up again. I was losing so much time, so that wasn't working either. So this sister-in-law just lived a few miles from Esker. She let us come and stay at her house to a playroom. Took
Brilliant.
the boys out and put up a wee camp bed and stuff. So we ended up lying there, So it's only a couple of miles, so it helped. It helped a lot, But
Mm-hmm.
all them wee things, all part of the big picture, if you know what I mean.
That's right. Yeah. Did you have any problems or any issues then with your intake, your food intake, your hydration, all those things? I
Probably
know.
the first couple of days I wasn't eating enough. I found that's probably why day 3 on I was struggling a wee bit. I just wasn't. I thought I was probably eating enough. I was eating stuff that I enjoy eating, and it just wasn't enough. So the wife had to sort of take me by the side and say, "Make me eat more food," So every
Mm-hmm.
last then she would maybe had potatoes mixed up for me and with a lot of butter and things like that to get the calories in. And each lap of the bike you had something different. Maybe a lap you had fruit, and next lap you had chicken and potatoes and things like that. So it took somebody to take control of that there. When I was getting left to myself, just to lift the stuff myself, I wasn't lifting it till late. I was just maybe cycling on, thinking I was losing time. So
Aye. So you were more focused. So the competitive side of you was kind of
take it
overruling
over.
overruling that.
Yeah,
The long game plan
yeah,
was kind
yeah,
of being
yeah.
left behind for. That's fascinating too. Do you know what I mean? It's so so the lack of food in day 1 and 2 actually left you weak.
Day 3 on.
It's sort of 3, 4, 5 until you
Aye,
started putting those calories back in to regain that strength. So that's where your trough
yeah,
came and
yeah.
the drop in your performance.
Mhm. And like I say, once I got into proper eating and stuff, I was picked up my times and started to enjoy it a wee bit more. If you could enjoy something like that.
Aye. I would say you guys ate some stuff after that. Hey.
Well, that's to say, like most days when we were going, like I was probably in around the 14,000 calories a day. So for me, once I got this, before I never took any food before the swim. Now I would have took a pint of Baraka, warm Baraka, sort of keep the vitamins and stuff in me. But
Mm-hmm.
came out of the swim, it was straight into a fry, like, so it was bacon and egg and sausages and maybe four sausages and bacon and lots of high fat stuff,
Yeah.
to get got in me to keep me warm, and then I would have done a couple of laps first and let that settle. Then it was kind of like near enough an eating competition from there on, to the home time, like as I would say. But another thing I do remember from the race was I never actually shared a worst. I don't think it was to like day 6. I know
Uh-huh.
time you think. I know looking back now, you probably thought, look, it only takes 5 or 10 minutes to get a quick shower, but back then,
It's
time that I was using to focus on something else during the.
it makes perfect sense to me. The idea that you would stop and have a share in any event is kind of a bit
Mm-hmm.
mad. Like so, and from speaking with you, your mindset is that you're in a race.
Yeah, but
And you're playing a game in terms of your it's you versus the clock, and your downtime so important.
aye,
Why would you take away those precious 10 or 15 minutes?
that's the way I looked at it. Was for it's time I could be trying to get rest and sleep rather than way looking about a shower or something.
I sure not a wee squirt of Lynx Africa wouldn't
That's it.
sort out
As we talk about a Belfast shower, So.
the student special.
You know, so yeah, it was all part of the experience.
So that's a phenomenal achievement, and thanks for giving us a bit of insight into the DECA and what it took out of you and what went
Mm-hmm.
on. What about the run up to the DECA and life before DECA? You had mentioned that you'd done the double and you'd done the triple. Your triple, um, where was the double and where was the triple, and how did they pan out?
The double one was over in England at Double Iron UK, which was actually just outside Birmingham, I think it
Mm-hmm.
was. And the triple we ran it for a charity just in Cookstown. So I used to live on the Moneymore Road, so we based it off from where I used to live, you know. So it was a 7 odd mile loop. Of course, we swam up in Cookstown swimming pool at the time. I guess 400 odd lengths to the pool. Yeah, cycled to my house, then done the laps near where I lived at the time, and then the run was a half mile down the road and back up again for 7 8 mile. Like, so.
So
Aye.
you did the three times the swim, followed by three times the bike, followed by three times the run.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, as I say, I started it on the Friday morning, 8 o'clock, because finished 50. I think I was 56 hours to finish it. Went to bed or whatever, got sort of tidied up after it, and up way to bed, and way to my work again Monday morning.
That's unreal. I'm rubbish at maths. You're probably well ahead of this one, but how far is that swim then? So your swim on a triple is
7.2 miles,
7.2 miles.
336 mile on the bike, which is pretty much the length of Ireland.
I was going to say that's the length of Ireland. Yeah,
And the run then 78 mile, I think it was, just shy of 80 mile, like so. Down to Belfast a few times, back up from Cookstown.
unbelievable. How do you go about waking up in the morning with your maybe a cup of coffee and a baraka? Maybe you needed more that day, but you're going to go into that. You're in a swimming pool for 7.2 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is nuts.
It was a long, long swim. Now I do remember getting out coughing a lot. Don't know whether it was because of the chlorine and stuff, you know. But we got out of it, and again, the weather was absolutely pure crap. Again, I think it rained for. I'd allowed myself about. I thought I would have had the bike done about 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just over 30 hours in the bike. Constant rain, like it didn't seem to stop raining. And I remember the missus and stuff at the house just trying to keep clothes dry. You're coming in every couple of 3 laps, changing out of white cycling clothes to get dry stuff on you to go back out in the rain again. Like, but
In terms of how did your body have, I mean, I'm just thinking the rain, the movement, the friction, the length of time that you're in the saddle. Was there physical problems there, like in terms of maybe
no,
not so much chaffing, but blisters or
no,
sores or anything like
that way I was okay all that way. You know, I had no chaffing or blisters or anything like that. But I do remember hallucinating. That's probably the only time I've ever hallucinated
right?
during an event. I remember on the run, there's a local fella, Joe Curry, a good ultra distance runner at the time. He decided to come down and run with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're running along the road, and I would have stopped and says to him, "Flip, watch them shopping baskets there, Joe." And I remember stopping and looking around. What do you mean? I said, somebody's lined up shopping. And I remember physically stepping over these things, and he
Right.
said, "There's nothing there." I says, "There, surely, you know." And away we went and come back. Maybe an hour later, there was I could see wine glasses lined up at the side of the road.
Uh-huh.
What sort of a clown has done that there, like? And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Them wine glasses sitting there, like." And he says, "No, there's nothing there, like." And then he says to me, "You're hallucinating, like." So
Mm-hmm.
that was the only time I ever had anything like that, you know, during an event, you know. So he actually went to the 24-hour shop and come down with a couple of tins of Red Bull that time. And once I got them banged into me, I was away again, like. It's alright.
And were the hallucinations associated with just pure fatigue?
Pure, lack of sleep for probably, that would have been early hours of the Sunday morning. So we're going about 2 hours. We're going from 8 o'clock Friday morning that time, so we were yeah,
Jeez, that's unreal.
so within long enough at that time
Aye,
on the go,
yeah. What about the course that you picked then for the bike? Was it the similar course then that you used for the Dakar? Was it a longer course, or was it just that
Well,
small?
that triple course ended up being just over 7 mile, so
Mm-hmm.
the Dakar course was just shy of 10 mile, so it wasn't far away, distance wise,
And it was again the laps, but your mindset was perfectly accustomed to doing those short, repetitive
Yeah, yeah.
laps.
I sort of got into that once I done the double Ironman that time. It was a pull swim as well. The bike again, it was small. It was small laps, and the run was small laps as well. So both from the early day, it had been sort of been getting used to it, doing the small laps.
I have this notion in my head. Maybe it's just a romantic notion, or possibly just a silly notion, that you guys, when I say you guys, I'm talking about ultra athletes, go out for these runs, and they're lovely big long runs, taking in loads and loads of scenery. You're way out for miles, so you're like maybe 30 or 40 miles out that way, and then you do a lovely big long loop around a lovely lake, and you're running
Mm-hmm.
across the top of a mountain. But the reality of it is very, very different when it comes to Bob's training. So it's a very different thing. It's a very, very short out and back,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of times.
It's because you're like Sadaka and different big long events like that. You knew it was going to be small laps, so you just had to train your mind to be used to doing a small loop as opposed to heading out somewhere far and then trying to run back. And then again, it's the safety aspect as well, because if you run from somewhere 20 mile out and you run out of fuel or something happens, you could be it could be a long time before somebody comes to your
Aye.
rescue. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're only about a mile or 2 mile from a base, you're going to be better looked after if someone the shit hits the fan, as they talk about. Like.
And that makes perfect sense. I mean, your missus already is scundered taking off your wetsuits at
Mm-hmm.
times. The last thing you need to be doing is ringing her and saying, I'm in Roscommon and I need you to come and collect me from my
Uh-huh.
bike's broke down. So I get that. The other thing I suppose as well is that repetitive, some might say mundane, even running up and down builds character and it must build strength in the mind.
Oh, it definitely does. Like you're going to be mentally strong for it when it comes to the event that you're used to small laps and used to back and forth or whatever.
Aye.
And like I do remember as well, leaving some of them training for some of them things. I used to work maybe over in Portadown on a building site, or whatever. And I remember on Fridays, like I used to bring my running stuff and run home to Cookstown, which was about 30 mile. And I remember the boys
After a day's work on the site,
after
after a week's work.
weeks work and the boys in the building site thinking you can't be wise, and I said, well, I'm having to get miles in, and that's a good way to get miles in on a Friday after work. You would have finished the day a couple of hours early, so
That's
you'd,
nuts, hey.
so you'd be running back to Cookstown, and I'd carry on like that.
So you're rocking up to the building site there on a Friday with the trainers and the shorts in a backpack and about probably fucking 6 lunch boxes full of rice, chicken, and all sorts of stuff. The rest of the lads tucking into
Well, that's
sausage
it.
roll with a bit of brown sauce.
You were finishing then probably about 2 or 3 o'clock, whatever it was, and you're getting in the back of the van there, and the boys said, "What are you at there?" And next thing you're jumping out with your runners on, a rucksack on, and like, where are you going? Oh, I'm running home, like, and I just thought your head was cut. But I suppose talking if they had been maybe into the sport or into that sort of thing, they would have realised what you were actually at. It was training for something else. And it maybe wouldn't look as solid looking or as mental looking.
And again, it's a further example of your strength and your mindset and this idea that this is what I do. This is who I am, and I'm going to do it anyway. So you might think it's a bit weird and a bit wonderful and a bit wacky and all the rest, but I'm doing what I need to do for me, and whatever. Way you go.
That's it. You definitely, you have to do your homework, like, and I always find, there's no point going to an event and trying to wing it. Yes, you can wing certain distances and stuff, but when it comes to ultras and things like that, you can't wing them. Like, you have to have some sort of a homework done.
And I'm intrigued to find out, if were you always into the three disciplines, Bob, and were you always into the ultra thing, or did you start off maybe just on a bike, or did you just start off running, or how did the? I know obviously you've done a lot of triathlon stuff. Was there a time whenever you were just doing one of those things, or maybe you came from a completely different background?
I come from no background at all because I finished school, got into I played soccer and football or whatever at school and the usual sort of things, but I left school, got into the building trade. Probably wasn't good enough shape probably when I left school, but as I say, got into the building trade and then as a joiner, so you were working late in building sites and shop fitting and stuff, so you're always eating crap food all the time, so I'd put on a right bit of weight. I'd probably went up to 16.5 stone, which is, for somebody, of my height at 5'8", probably was quite heavy, so
Yeah,
I remember maybe one night, a few mates and had a few beers, whatever, and got home to my house and we're watching TV and there's a triathlon or something on, and I remember us talking about it and I said I was going to do one. And the mates giving me a bit of jib over it, but my weight and stuff, you'd never do a triathlon. And it was more or less from that I got started then and read into it a bit and got a bit of research and ended up doing a wee bit of running and bought a wee cheap bike and so forth. And then that time my local triathlon would have been the Loughney triathlon, Ballyrunning.
Okay.
So joined the High Elbow Triathlon Club and got involved with them, and then in 2003 I think it was, I done my first triathlon, and within a few years in it I was on the Ironman circuit, so that's how I got into it. And there was no really coming from a background of cycling or running.
So it was just that, maybe that comment and seeing that on the TV, and you thought, why not?
Aye, that was pretty much it, and that's how it all revolved. And I'm sure 30 odd Ironman later, and numerous ultras and 100 meters, and all here to tell the story.
That was my next question. You said that was, so you joined High Elbow, you done a few triathlons, and next thing you know, you're on the Ironman circuit. I'm absolutely intrigued to find out the Ironman circuit. What are we talking here with regards to that? Were you the guy that went from one race to the next race to the next race, or did you
Pretty much I
do one or
started,
two a year, or how did that pan out?
sort of got in, I done Ironman UK in 2005, and I remember doing the training and stuff for it and thinking, look, I could go faster. So, as you do, you get on and see what's the next one. I think it was Austria. Went out and done Austria, and I remember the heat. I remember the heat being brutal warm in Austria, and during the bike, I remember thinking, flip, I wish my wheels would fall off. Any excuse to
For a
stop.
DNF.
DNF, but I got it finished, and I remember only went a bit less than a minute faster than my previous Ironman. It was still a PB, but that then led to, I think it was Lanzarote or somewhere after that, and just revolved. Then you were just constantly, you're finishing one Ironman, you were looking about another one to do, so that's how I got sort of, then that led to the first, started to run the double Ironman then over in the UK, and once I done it, then that's when the triple started and so forth, and then it snowballed, and then it sort of got into ultra running. I got done a right few ultras over the years as well, different ones, London to Brighton and things like that. And
what sort of distances were you covering then, just on your ultra runs then, Bob?
Well, any time I would have went out and probably run a marathon any sort of day of the week, where people would have been training for marathons. I would, like I say, running home from Portadown, that would have been 30 mile, so I'd have
Uh-huh.
done all sorts of things, and just to you're signing up for, say, some of them 24-hour runs, and you're going to them, using them as training for something else, so.
Unbelievable. I say to the missus I'm away out for a run. She's expecting me back in about 60 to 90 minutes. You say to your missus you're away for a run and she thinks, Jesus, could be Tuesday before he's back.
I was back, suppose, about 10 years ago, well, before the DACA even, and that's which is 12 years ago, I'd have been, Grace, my wife, would have been used to me saying I'm away for a bike ride or a run and not seeing me for hours, that sort of way. Like, she was used to it, like, so.
So how many Ironman have you completed then? Do you know off?
I think over 30 anyway, Ironman races, like, so. I have a cupboard full of t-shirts there that probably could do a bit of a dusting down sometimes. There's events I forget that I've even done till I've hook into a drawer and pull out a t-shirt, that sort of way.
Aye.
And you look, I don't mind doing that, and you look at the date on it, sort of, and then you get memories of flashbacks of the race or whatever. Like.
What about the highlights? There's bound to be some absolute standout moments across your ultra career that you'll never forget. Obviously, the DECA that you've already spoken about has to be up there.
Probably one of the best ones. I know it was a low key race, really. This year I got engaged in 2009. I'd done that double Ironman. At the time I'd planned maybe to ask Grace at the time when we were over at that event,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't materialise. I think probably during the event I had a hard run during it, and I just didn't get round to getting down on the one knee, that sort of way. The following weekend was Ironman down at Grimsport, the 2-6 challenge they would had on down there, so I held out then to it. So I think it was either the following weekend or maybe 2 weekends later after the double Ironman.
Right.
I got down on the one knee to propose to that, so that's probably one of my, although it's a low key race, but a highlight for myself, to be honest.
Special moment.
Yeah. So
brilliant. I'm sure you've seen it recently. The guy that's done the proposal after doing an Ironman, it's all over the Instagram at the minute. And he goes down and the hamstring goes into spasm, and it looks like he's been shot from behind by a sniper. So, nothing like that. Then
no, nothing like that. Just done it down in Grimsport in front of people and friends and family. It was there watching, so it was made it that more special as well. Whereas probably if I had done it over in England at the double Ironman, there wouldn't have been as many people know me and stuff over there, So, but no, it's probably one of my better highlights.
Oh, that's class. That's definitely one for the family album. What about in terms of toughness? I've spoken to a few people now, and they're always talking about Lanzarote being the toughest one. You had mentioned there that Austria at that time was particularly tough because of the heat. So I suppose there's a lot of different elements that contribute to the toughness of an event. And because you've done so many, it would be very interesting to find out what your take is on what is a tough Ironman. I know they're all tough in their own right, but what makes one particularly tough, and what would be the ones that you would rank as the more difficult ones that you've experienced?
Probably, yes, everybody raves about Lanzarote being hard, and it is hard, don't get me wrong, it is hard, and if it's windy on the island, you are gonna suffer, but I find they are all hard in their own way, and if you're racing it for a time, irrespective of how hard the actual course is, it is going to be a hard race, if you're chasing a certain time and trying to break a certain time barrier, they all are hard, and you will go through highs and lows in every Ironman, I wouldn't put one really over the other. Yes, Lanzarote, I've done it a few times, and I've done the full a couple of times, and the half, and they were all hard each time, but I wouldn't put a flat course been harder than the hillier course, because a flat course, you're having to work the same muscles the whole way through the bike, that sort of way. People think you go to a flat course, it's easier. It's definitely not easier, because you're working, like I say, the same muscles the whole way. Whereas Lanzarote, you get a bit of retrieval maybe on downhills, different things. But I wouldn't just any of them over any harder than the other. They all have their own hard aspects of each event.
It's interesting to hear that from that perspective, because I've only done one Ironman. I do intend to do some more at some point. Hopefully next year, all being well. But because I'm not competitive, I guess I would probably be more interested in the terrain and the elevation and the this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
But what you've said there to me has kind of opened up the idea that if you're going for time, it doesn't matter what the course is. If you're interested in your time and you're pushing for your PB,
Yeah,
that distance, be it up, down, or around, is going to be soared. I mean, you are going to be pushing the whole
yeah,
time. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. And once that hooter goes off in the swim, like, you're going to be watching that clock the whole way through the race, that sort of way. Like, and I do remember one Ironman, I think it was Germany, one of the Frankfurt ones, one year done it. I think I was trying to get under maybe the 11-hour barrier at that time, and I remember putting masking tape over my watch face so I couldn't look at the time. I just wanted to race on feel. And I remember thinking, I'll just race on field and not get too carried away with what the watch is telling me. And
Yeah.
I come up to the finish line, up the finish chute. I said, I'm going to peel this back here. And I peeled it back and looked down at it. And it was 11 hours and a few seconds, So it did show that if you do know your body sort of well, you don't have to be watching the watch the full way through it. You can work on field, and it did learn me how to cope with different aspects through the day when you're cramping and stuff, that you didn't have to be sitting watching your watch and thinking how many minutes you were losing, maybe stretching out a hamstring or something that's locked up on you, So
yeah, that whatever's in you is going to come out.
It's going to come out, yeah,
I'm going to be cheeky and ask you, what is your PB?
What was it? Just over the 10 hours. I think it was 10:09. I think it was, like, so. That was my last one, but I sort of feel that probably I had a bad swim now. I do think maybe in that year, if I hadn't had the bad swim, I might have nipped under the 10, but I took just coming probably the last 200 or 300 metres, that was at Barcelona, so it was a choppy swim. So I remember taking a kick in the head and coming out a bit disorientated.
Right.
He ran into the changing tent and lifted me lifted me run gear to go out on the bike. And I remember coming and running down, sitting down, emptying the bag out. I've lifted the wrong bag. Cross with myself that I'd done it, but I knew it was from I took a right kick in the head, and so I had to run back and put it all back in the bag and go back to the changing tent and hook it back up, look for the bike, and but like I say, yes, it was a PB, and I found over the years, at the start when I wanted to break 12 hours, I broke the 12 hours. Once I broke 11 hours, and then I was always going 10.5 sort of times to that, and I was getting quicker and quicker. But I found within myself, you were always just moving the goalposts as well, that the faster you went, you weren't feeling any more a better achievement, if you know what I mean. Yes, you'd done an Ironman, you'd went faster each time, but I just found years of just moving the goalposts further down, that's probably what led to me sort of retiring out of the long distance Ironman stuff and trying other things, that I didn't feel any better within myself moving the goalpost all the time. Yes, I was getting faster, but I still, a few days later, you're like, all right, I've done that there now. What's next? So I suppose then when I turned 40, I decided, well, whatever comes of that race, that was the end of the Ironman racing. So it wasn't really long after that. Then I sort of got into mountain biking and that sort of thing, and sort of do 10-12 hour mountain bike events and things like that. And,
So you've have you completely retired, or is there a triathlon lurking somewhere deep in the recesses of Bob's mind?
Well,
Because I know I was chatting to Keith and he had retired too, but there was a couple of wee things that were always floating about that he had an interest in, and lo and
uh,
behold, he got offered a place and away he went.
yeah. Well, there's no Iron Man that stands out for me at the minute that yes, I really, really want to do. But we were just, like I say, we were on holidays there a few weeks ago in Lanzarote, and I'd been showing my daughter parts of the course and things, on the island. But the Iron Man was on. She sort of said she'd like to come and watch it sometime, and then I says, well, if we ever go to watch it, I'll be doing it, that's the way it was left. So if she ever wants to go and watch Iron Man Lanzarote, I'll have to be taking part, to be honest. Like, so
That's an absolutely fantastic idea. Then you can blame her.
I can blame her, yeah. So
That's fantastic. I've got 4 lads. I must have a good chat to them there to say they'd love to go and see an Ironman, and then I can volunteer to take one for the team and step up.
unless that happens, I don't think I'll be signing up sort of soon,
Aye,
that sort of way. Like, I'm enjoying not having the clock watch and try to prioritize your training all the time. Like I say, I've built a house now, a couple of years now. But I remember like at the start when we started to build the house, saying to our contractors, I'd like to be in 8 months.
mm-hmm.
As during COVID, and people are saying, "No, a contractor will never get you in that house in 8 months." And I put it out the tender and stuff and got prices, and then it just probably the competitive side of me says, right. So I decided then I would self build. Brought on a digger man, and he dug out and got a guy to do the block works and stuff. And from that point on, I sort of probably treated the building of the house as a competition.
Yeah.
I just worked at it day and night, and we ended up moving in a week before Christmas. So I was 8 months from digging ground to moving in, So
Deadly.
I suppose you could say that's another part of me being competitive and trying to prove people wrong when they say something can't be done. And I remember, like, over the years doing triathlon and all, you're doing things, people say, "Oh, no, you couldn't do that, you wouldn't be fit for that," So I suppose my own life after triathlon, I have carried that sort of ethos on, whereas I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it, that way. And I don't like,
Aye.
it's not that I don't like being beat, but I like to say to people, prove people wrong at the same time, to say, look, it can be done. And there's a challenge there, no matter where it's triathlon or running or something. You can always stand up to it and take a chip away at it and get it done. Should that be building a house or climbing a mountain or
Yeah.
riding the length of Ireland or whatever it is on a bicycle, like,
There's nothing that you can't achieve when you put your mind to it.
Pretty much that's what I'm sort of saying. Yes, I say to people, if it's in you to do it, you'll do it, that sort of way.
You're sort of an all or nothing sort of a guy, Bob. Be fair to say.
I don't like to go in them things sort of half measures, as I say. It's either all or nothing, or you're going to start something, get stuck in it and do it right, that sort of way. There's no half measure.
Yeah. So you have you've some story to tell, Bob, and it's been absolutely fantastic listening to it.
There's probably
Um,
a lot of stuff I've missed over the years, things I've done and forgot about, and that sort of carry on, But I've
has
enjoyed
it
it all,
has it
and like I say now, I've one daughter there, like, and I'm enjoying seeing her growing up,
Yeah.
as opposed to some of the friends I would have been training with or whatever over the years or working with, spent their time to me away from home where they weren't seeing the family growing up and things and chasing the clock, as they say. Whereas I've done all that there, and I'm enjoying sort of taking it that bit easier and coming home from work and having the evenings with my daughter and wife and stuff and doing the family
And
thing. And, you only get the one go at them things, like, they're not young for too long, like, so.
that's exactly it. And what you've already done and what you've already achieved, your daughter's picking up on that.
Oh, I
Your
look.
holiday that was out there in Lanzarote and you're showing her the bits and bobs. Like, she knows her dad's done some stuff. She knows her dad's special. Like, she knows that she's, I just get a sense that she she knows that she's in good hands. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
I subscribe to the monkey see, monkey do. So she will be inspired and motivated and know and understand and truly believe, like her dad, if she wants to do something, all she has to do is believe that she can and she will.
she's definitely a determined wee girl now. I mean, she does. She always wants to get better every time. She'll be riding the bike. I never ever pushed her to get into riding bicycles and stuff like that. And if she wanted to do it, I would help her. And now she gets on the biker and rides round and round the house and things like that. There was probably about a year ago. She wasn't. She had no interest in cycling at all. Up in the morning there before she's off now for the summer holidays, but up to the summer holidays there, she's up every morning out around the garden riding the bicycle. After never looking at it for a couple of years there. After getting Santa bring it to her.
Hey, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
So
She's doing her wee short, safe laps, round and round and round. Watch this space. Hey, that doll's going to do some damage on the ultrascene. What do you say?
a good enough wee swimmer and all there too, like, so you wouldn't know how.
It could be the next family holiday. Could be one of them adventure holidays where there's just non-stop action, mountain biking and abseiling and canoeing and all sorts of stuff.
She could end up at some of the Iron Kids races or whatever,
Oh, aye. Yeah, and then you'd have to do the
whole
half of the
function.
full then while you're over.
That's it. Sure, you'd have to kill two birds with one stone, wouldn't you?
That's brilliant. I'm putting that down as another note here in my notebook. Further plans for Colin's holidays that involve me having to do an Ironman event, that'd be superb.
Oh, definitely.
Bob, thank you very much for agreeing to do the podcast and taking the time to chat to me. It's been absolutely amazing. You're an inspirational guy, and hats off.
I wouldn't go that far, but I like to. If anybody ever has any questions to ask, I'm always there to, answer their question. I still regularly get people would send you a text or message you on Facebook or about if they're heading to do an event and what's the best way, and that's give them tips whenever I can. And I'm always at the end of the phone. Anybody ever wants to know any insight of doing some of the ultra stuff, I'm always there to answer anybody's question.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Bob. And for anybody that's sitting out there now listening to this, maybe a 16 stone builder, you don't have to stay like that. You don't have to, be like that. You can change. You can absolutely transform. And to think that you were at one point very, very overweight and very unhealthy.
Yeah.
At 16 stone to standing on the finish line, hugging your wife, surrounded by your friends and family with 3% body fat, having completed a DECA. By Christ, that is some journey there.
It's a good enough journey to talk about now. But if somebody else takes something else out of it and gives them a bit of a spring in their step to go and try something there, should be all worthwhile.
Well, that's exactly it. Bob, will sign off on that. Thank you very, very much.
No problem at all.
Take care and look after yourself.
All right, all the best, Maggie. Take it easy.